So, Mass Effect is relevant again. Andromeda is coming out this month, and I'm scouring Craigslist for the best PS4 deals I can find, some of which are sketchier than others. So now that Mass Effect is relevant again, I figured it's time for me to make a shitty video capitalizing on it. I'm just kidding, I just really wanted an excuse to make a video about a series that I love. You're all awesome, please don't unsubscribe. I figured the best way to go about this video would be to explain my thoughts on the Mass Effect series as a whole. I started a Mass Effect playthrough on this channel almost a year ago, which I swiftly took out to my channel's proverbial backyard and shot in the head. My inability to manage a proper Let's Play aside, in those videos I managed my unconditional love for the game despite its shortcomings. After all, Mass Effect is not a perfect game. I honestly have a hard time arguing that it's even a good game. Your enjoyment of the series depends more on whether you're into dumb space adventures and messing about with cutscenes. The first game really relies on your willingness to take your time, explore, and take in the wonderful bits of world building. I'm a bit biased though, so take that with a grain of salt. Unfortunately, while the world was immersive, I always found the strings attaching everything to be flimsy at best. It's not a bad game technically speaking, just a little bland in the gameplay department. But you played through it and you got to that ending and convinced Saren to kill himself. Spoilers for a 10-year-old game. Then Mass Effect 2's trailer dropped and the hype around it was immense. When the game came out, several outlets hailed it as the ultimate pinnacle of gaming. Is it? Well, no. The game has plenty of flaws, bugs, repetitive gameplay, bad voice acting, plot holes, plot conveniences, plot armor, lack of plot armor, I could go on. So why is it hailed as a 10 out of 10 game? Simple. Because Mass Effect was never about the game. It was about the story and the characters, and Mass Effect 2's story and characters were fantastic. Mass Effect 2 played out more like a TV show than a video game, each mission almost feeling like an episode of Star Trek or a scene from Star Wars. I guess that was the feeling they were trying to emulate from the get-go. The tone of the suicide mission permeates the game, and the concepts of loss and acceptance allow each character to go through their own arc. Each of these arcs converge at the finale, leading to probably the greatest final mission in video game history. Again, I'm a bit biased. The dark nature of the Mass Effect universe is on full display here. Despite the neon and chrome, there are several hints at a darker nature behind everything throughout the entirety of the game. There are even some pretty disturbing things that happen. Your charming secretary being liquefied comes to mind. Good times. Mass Effect 2 opted for a dark, gritty aesthetic that fully embraced the galactic existential horror that Mass Effect hinted at with Sovereign. And although there were plenty of flaws within the gameplay and the plot itself, it was still a damn good game. Then, Mass Effect 3 happened. It's difficult to fully explain my thoughts on Mass Effect 3. I played it so long ago that my memories are no doubt warped by time and vitriol, and bleach, so I'll try to keep my thoughts concise. Let's take an example of a plotline from Mass Effect 2. Throughout the game, there's a small subplot with Joker adjusting to the new Normandy, the previous Normandy essentially being his only method of moving with ease and therefore the one thing in his life that gives him passion. When the Normandy is destroyed, he's grounded for 2 years, losing his connection to what gives his life meaning. When picked up by Cerberus, he's then forced to adjust to the AI, EDI, being a part of the ship. The two characters have to establish trust in order to work together, making it a story about Joker forming a relationship with EDI, and therefore re-establishing his connection with the one thing in his life that gives him happiness. It's a legitimately well thought out, subtle, and even heartwarming subplot. Let's take a look at Mass Effect 3's interpretation of this story. Oh, there's a sexy girl robot in the first mission of the game? Oh, the sexy girl robot is EDI now. Only not EDI. She's a part of EDI? What? Oh, now Joker and EDI are literally dating. I know the writing of BioWare games isn't the top tier Hollywood writing that they try to emulate, but this is taking something that was done well and fumbling it so hard the ball goes in the other direction. In the direction of stupidity. So this is my real problem with Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect 1 and 2 built up a great array of characters. Sure, some were boring, some were terrible, but the majority were charming, compelling, interesting, and surprisingly badass. You felt their struggles, and you wanted to see them succeed. Mass Effect 3 just didn't seem to know what to do with all of it. And that's totally understandable. I don't think the ending could have ever been what we wanted it to be, but the focus still felt lost. It felt as though BioWare, or rather EA, had forgotten that the content we cared about were the characters rather than the gameplay. Mass Effect 3 wasn't a bad video game, just a disappointing follow-up. Maybe that's why the outcry was so fierce. That was what woke me up from the hype culture. From the endless promises of future DLC and pre-order bonuses. In that way, I suppose I owe Mass Effect 3 a lot. But now that I'm getting back in, what are my thoughts? How do I feel about the follow-up to one of the greatest letdowns of video game history? I'm actually really excited. Obviously, I'm cautious to not let myself become swallowed up by the hype again, and I'm sure that good old BioWare writing might not have the same luster as my first few playthroughs of ME2, but I'm ready to enjoy this new game for what it is. I'm approaching this with an air of caution and excitement. I want to see Mass Effect return to form, and I want to go back to a series that I love. But most of all, I want to see where this universe can still go. But let's talk about something more substantial, like the actual game. I'm a little too sentimental. The game taking place between Mass Effect 2 and 3 makes perfect sense to me. This way you can keep the improvements of Mass Effect 3 without being bogged down by whatever logic BioWare would have to pull out of its ass to follow up that ending. Also, the idea that I can play Mass Effect 2 then move directly to Mass Effect Andromeda makes me a lot happier than I thought it would. It's almost like they know. The apparent focus on a lighter tone is also a welcome change. Compared to the depressing schlock the last game turned into, this is exactly what needed to happen. Mass Effect was always about goofy space adventures with awkward onesie spacesuits and fun characters. I think a Mass Effect game without the theme of inherent doom on the horizon might actually not be a bad thing. Maybe it will take itself less seriously. Regardless, the game can function without the trappings of the original story, which, let's face it, was always rather limited. This could allow the game to focus on those elements I discussed earlier. You know, characters, space adventures, fun. Remember fun? I don't doubt that Andromeda will be fun to play, but the elements that are truly important to me are good characters, a fun journey, and an ending that doesn't make me suddenly regret multiple hours of my life. Because after all, Mass Effect is a universe that still deserves to be explored, and I believe that Andromeda can serve as that fresh start the series needs. Without the inherent doom of the Reapers, perhaps a new optimism can take place in order to form the foundation for new characters that we can love, and new stories that we can enjoy. I, for one, am looking forward to exploring Andromeda, and finally returning to the series that I once unconditionally loved. Anyway, no matter what comes of this, we will always have dumb animation GIFs! God, I'm terrible.